Grace, it's with great pleasure that I introduce you. Thank you for coming.
So this is sort of a homecoming of sorts, because the last time I spoke to the AMA a long time ago, I presented on how to become a savvy entrepreneurial marketer. That was when I was launching my company that was first called Savvy Marketing Group, which is now Savvy Growth. So kind of a homecoming. I'm thrilled that all of you are here, and I hope that you'll be able to take away a couple of things that you can put into your life right away. And I also hope that you will learn at least one fact about happiness and well-being that perhaps you didn't know before. So I'm going to speak for about 20, 25 minutes, and we're going to have interactive exercises during that, and then we're going to have a breakout where you all will put into action with people at your table one or two of the 6 keys to experiencing happiness. So just to let you know, I know we started a little bit late, but we're probably going to be going till around 1. We'll probably be doing our breakout right before noon, and then doing the breakout and then wrapping up. So just to let you know the time. So what I'm going to share is, I'm going to ask you first some questions, and then we're going to talk about the answers. Then I'm going to share my personal story of why I decided to spend many years studying happiness. Then I will share with you the equation, the 3 factors that go into experienced happiness. And then I will talk about those 6, there's many, many keys, but I will share with you 6 keys that you have in your control to increasing your well-being, which improves your performance at work and then helps you have a more flourishing life. And then afterwards, we'll discuss your breakout discussions, and then we're going to do a wrap-up. And I'm also going to announce at the end a new club that I'm starting, the HappinessWorks Plunge Club, and I'll share a little bit more with you about that. And then also, you don't have to worry about taking notes or anything. At the end, I'll also give you a QR code if you would like. You can. I'll give you a copy of the slides. And also, each of those 6 steps I've written about. So if you're interested in the links on each of the 6 steps to learn more about that, I'd be happy to share that with you. And I'll explain that in a bit. Alrighty. The first thing I'd like you to do with the person next to you is answer these 3 questions. These are connected to Slidos, so I hope it works. This is the first time I've done it on my own, the Slidos. But you can also just talk to the person next to you about these 3 questions. First, what is your definition of happiness? The second one is, yes or no, is the natural state of humans a happy one? And then is happiness a feeling is the third question. So if you could just chat with the person next to you about your answers to these 3, and then if the Slido works, if you can populate that after you come to a decision. Would this table like to offer your definition of happiness?
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I think happiness is...
Look at people.
Look at people. There you go. So I think happiness is really a feeling of joy and satisfaction where you can show up as your best self. That would be my definition.
Thank you. What about Stan's table? Is there someone there who wants to offer? Not to cold call you or anything.
We had a couple of different opinions. From my viewpoint, happiness is a bit of a fool's errand in that it's really a state that you can create. So if you're pursuing your passion, if you have people around you that you love what you're doing, in those elements, you can find happiness. Thank you for reminding me of the Viktor Frankl book, Man's Search for Meaning. But in total destitution, when you're in the concentration camps, happiness. He was even able to find peace with his state of being. And happiness isn't something that should just be fleeting and come and go, but should be something that we build and engineer into our lives.
So you sort of answered one of the last questions. I actually posted a Viktor Frankl quote this week, so thank you so much for sharing that. Others, the back table over here, would you guys like to offer an answer?
We actually have several different circles around the table, so I didn't get to survey everybody, but it's key things to happiness are, I'd say, some key states that, so similar to what Rule was saying, like feeling a sense of connectedness will bring happiness, or being with family will bring you a state of happiness. So I think it completely relates to what Rule said, is there are different things that bring happiness, and that cultivating those is what, how you stay in that state or achieve that state.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to share? All right. What about number 2? Show a raise of hands. Is the natural state of humans equal to happy? Who thinks yes? And okay, and then who says no? Okay, a few more say no. Okay. I'll share the answer to that in a second. And I'll just do the next one, then I'll move on to both. Is happiness a feeling? Yes. No. I think some people aren't voting. All right. So interestingly, one thing I want to say up front is happiness is not all smiley faces. I actually had a client a couple of years ago, the VP of HR told one of the people to tell me, my day-to-day contact, have Grace not use the word happiness in her HappinessWorks workshop for us. Because some people think it's all smiley faces and it's not even appropriate to discuss at work. And I'll share later on with you some of the ROI data that shows about how when you have employees who are well, who are happy, and I'll explain to you how they measured that, it actually impacts even your stock price, and I'll go through some of that in a minute. But emotional regulation and your response to negative emotions is a very important part of well-being and happiness. So we'll share a little bit about that. So the question that I asked about the natural state. The natural state of humans is one where we are fearful. And therefore, it stops us from doing things for our own protection. And this is just the way, from a long time ago, we were created. So we have to fight that instinct to actually take action because we're naturally fearful of things. And things that are little stress becomes big stress, like capital letter stress, when you ruminate and when you don't take action. But that's the way we are wired genetically. So we have to fight. And so that's why I call my body of work HappinessWorks. The science of positive psychology works, but it takes ongoing work because we have to fight our human nature. It's our amygdala that actually makes us scared of a lot of things we see in front of ourselves. On the question of happiness, is it a feeling? If you ask Arthur Brooks, he would say it is not a feeling. Arthur Brooks is a faculty member at Harvard Business School who teaches the most popular elective on leadership and happiness. And he thinks that it is a science and a practice that can be developed over time, and I think that's what some of you said in your answers. And it's made of 3 macronutrients that are listed here. Webster's has a definition that I think at least one of you got close to. And I mentioned positive psychology. Marty Seligman, who's on faculty at Penn, he gave birth to this field of study over 25 years ago. What he did at that time was he looked at all the research that had been done on human maladies and counted the number up. And then he also counted up the number of research studies that had been done on human flourishing. And does anyone want to take a guess at what the ratio was of maladies versus flourishing?
20 to 1.
Ooh, you guys have done your homework. Yeah, it was 21-1. So, wow, you get the star. So he thought it's time to flip this ratio and start to do research on what makes people flourish. And not that anything is wrong with studying about human maladies and all mental health issues, mental illnesses, but why not focus some research on what makes us stay well? And that gave birth to this field of positive psychology. It's science-based, and it helps us figure out how to stay well. Tal Ben-Shahar then, shortly thereafter, created a course called Positive Psychology 1504 at Harvard, and it became the most popular course there. And Laurie Santos teaches it now at Yale, which now is the most popular course at Yale. There's definitely been a lot more, if you look at the statistics and the trend line, of mental health issues amongst all age groups, but definitely young people. It's definitely gone up. And so that's why there's been, these courses are so wildly popular on campus. Every student, it's pretty scary, the percentage of students that have gone through a mental health crisis. And if you think about parents, many of you are parents, what do you most want for your children? Many people will say to be happy, right? So I was at a symposium for Arthur's Leadership and Happiness Lab a couple of years ago, and Laurie Santos was there also. And she exclaimed to us, we were all teachers of happiness around the world, and she said, instead of saying that we're teachers of happiness, because she even gets this pushback that I mentioned that I got, she said, instead, we should say that we are teachers of human performance, how to improve human performance. I'm very fascinated by neuroscience, and a lot of my work is informed by neuroscience. And it's interesting that what I learned I could not have learned when I was in school, because the technology did not exist to do brain scans then. In the last couple of decades, there's been an incredible amount of technology innovation that's allowed researchers to study the brain, which therefore helps us understand a lot more about happiness and well-being. So you may be wondering, why? What is my why? Why have I dedicated a lot of energy into studying happiness? Well, my first happiness journey started a decade ago. I'm a single mom, and I had one child. And so when he was going off to college, I thought that I might fall into deep depression. I have a genetic predisposition toward that through my mother. And at that time, the two big things in my life were my work, my business, and then my son. And then I thought, okay, half of my life is being taken away from me when my son goes to college. I may get really down. So I proactively started reading books on positive psychology. And by then, 10 years ago, there was quite a bit of literature, a lot of research done already. One of the books I read, and I read dozens and dozens of books, was The Happiness Advantage by Sean Achor. He was the teaching fellow of Tal Ben-Shahar at Harvard. And it really struck out at me the happiness advantage. It's happiness that creates success, not the other way around. And for so long, when I was younger, I thought, just when I achieve this, just when I get this promotion, just when I launch this campaign, just when I get this done, just when I hire this person or this, but it's not that way at all, and I'll explain a little bit more about homeostasis later on. So that was a decade ago. I spent a year studying this subject, and it was, first I thought it was just gonna be a few weeks I was gonna study, but it became a year because I realized that it could help my coaching clients. Then life went on. And then several years ago, about 4 years ago, because of a series of events of compounded grief through losses, my father, my mother, some work things, some personal things, and then I moved from my home of 25 years to a home that I did not like, and then COVID, and I found myself in a very, very dark place, a place that I'd never been before. And during those months, which were the most difficult months of my life, one of the things I forced myself to do was to log into my 30th business school reunion. Because I had never missed a single reunion, and they had all been in person before. But this one was, because during COVID, it was on Zoom. And so I forced myself to log in. I thought, okay, Grace, force yourself to log in, even if it's just for a few minutes. Because when you're depressed and down, it takes an enormous amount of energy to do anything. But I was trying to get better, and so I forced myself to log in. And when I logged in, one of my favorite professors, Lynn Schlesinger, was interviewing this gentleman named Arthur Brooks. Does anyone here know of him? And he was talking about this new book that he was going to launch in a few months called From Strength to Strength, Finding Meaning, Happiness, and Deep Purpose in the Second Half of Your Life. And what he said was interesting, and it reminded me of my work with Tao many years earlier. And it gave me a teeny glimmer of hope. Teeny. And I said to myself, if I get better, because I actually did not think I would, I said, I'm going to dedicate a chunk of my work to helping people in this dark place. So thankfully, with the support of a lot of people in prayer, I did get better. And just literally a few weeks after I went into remission, I got a outreach from Rick Smith at WRAL TechWire, and he asked, hey, Grace, would you like, we'd really like for you to start writing a weekly column. And I immediately said yes, no rumination, said yes, because Bias for Action can help your wellness. He didn't know the really bad place I had been in, but I really love to write. And I said yes, and I said, hey, can you give me a few weeks to think about what my theme will be? Because I knew I had to get better, and I had to think clearly through this. And he said, oh, yes, of course. So what I did was during that time, I thought about the vow that I'd made when I was in that dark place about helping others in this dark place, and I was much better. So I thought, okay, I can use this platform, this vehicle, to do that. And I reached out to Arthur and asked him for an advance copy of his book. It was on my doorstep the next morning, and I did a review of his book. I launched on Valentine's, it was just over 3 years ago, so 3 years and 1 month ago. And when I posted it, I said, it will be the greatest Valentine's gift to me if someone close to you, a friend or loved one or colleague, by my coming out, if it can impact them by my sharing. So I now have 130 columns. I'll be talking to you. I'm creating coursework around it, the HappinessWorks Plunge Club and other things as part of this vow that I made to help others. I also know that people who are really in a dark place, they definitely need a lot more help than just some of the things I do. Of course, you need clinical help and other things, but this could be part of it. And definitely, this can be part of the positive psychology of helping you stay well if you're already up here. If you're a little bit down here, this could be part of the resources that you could have at your fingertips. And then also, back 10 years ago, I went online and watched the 22 lectures that Tao did at Harvard, because anyone can go and see them free online. I did a couple certifications with the Whole Big Institute, which he founded. And then more recently, he started the Happiness Studies Academy, which is a global group with many, many happiness teachers. And I got certified, and here there is me in Cartagena getting my diploma from him. When I speak to companies, they hire me because they know that they have to care. And these are just a few data points on the benefits of having employees that are happy, that they're well, they're flourishing. You're gonna have better retention, you're gonna have more productivity, more engagement, which leads to better sales, better recruiting skills, less absenteeism, better health. Because there's, of course, a connection between your physical and mental health. When I was at the first, let me back up a second. When I interviewed Arthur Brooks for one of my columns, and in the interview, he said to me that universities throughout the world were reaching out to him to say, hey, how do we teach what you're doing at Harvard? And so he decided, because he's just one person, and part of his mission, he also has a genetic predisposition toward depression. He also really wants to teach like I do to help others. He knows he's just one person. He's very sought after. He speaks all over the world. He wanted to bring happiness teachers onto campus at Harvard into his lab and teach us what he teaches and have people like Marty Seligman, people like Laurie Santos come and hang out with us, which is pretty amazing to hang out with Laurie. And Marty Seligman said at the launch symposia that I had the great fortune of attending, he said, I'm so excited. This research has just come out of Oxford and Harvard that has quantitative data from over 1 million people, about 1,200 publicly traded companies that talk about the quantitative ROI. And this research had just come out. He hadn't really perused it, but if you'd like, I've written and researched the research, and I can share that in the links. If you write to me, I can include that in the package I send you. But it's really fascinating. I'll just share with you the point that I thought was the most interesting. They took the top 100 happy, well companies, and just to let you know, the well-being dimensions that they asked these 1 million employees are, I am happy at work most of the time. My work has a clear sense of purpose. I think you guys talked about the importance of that. Overall, I'm completely satisfied with my job. And then they measured stress. I feel stressed at work most of the time. They put that into a wellness equation, and they created a portfolio of stocks for the top 100 companies that scored highest on wellness. And there was, they plotted the portfolio of happy companies, the Wellbeing 100 versus 3 other indices, and you can see what the difference is. It's 18% increase on stock price. And then they also looked at ROA, gross profits, and firm value. So I thought that was very interesting. All right, the next thing I'd like you to do is, maybe we can just do raise of hands for interest of time. I'd like to discuss what percent of our happiness is determined by our genes. Who thinks it's 10%? 25? Okay, 50? 75? 0? Okay, range. Everyone, people in each of these buckets. So through twin studies, it's been found that half of our experienced happiness is determined genetically. And so it's good to know, or if you have in your family a preponderance toward mental health issue, toward depression, it's good to know, like, I have to work harder. Arthur has to work harder. You probably know if you have to work harder or not. Assuming your family talks about it, because some families don't talk about it. It's really changed in the last even few years because pop stars, others, gymnasts are talking about depression, but there's still a stigma. There's still a stigma. The other 2 buckets, and that's where I'm going to focus. So the good news on genes, I want to just quickly say, is that there is research being done in gene therapy to identify the depression markers. Right now, everything is experimental. So nothing has been commercialized to help. So for all practical purposes of what's available today, I'm going to focus, and all my focus of HappinessWorks and our Plunge Club will be in these 2 other buckets, circumstances and habits. Who here thinks that we don't have control over our circumstances in our life? Things happen to us. So you might say to me, Grace, but why do you have that? Because we can't control it. Oh, no one thinks that. Okay. Well, you can control how you react to your circumstances, and that's something that I still work on. And it's back to the Viktor Frankl quote. He has a great quote that talks about the space in between something that happens to you and then your reaction. That space is the world. I don't remember the exact quote, I should memorize it, but I posted that this week, and that's all about emotional regulation. He obviously was very good at it. And he probably learned, right? He had to for survival. and to come out in a much better place. So also, I would say that everyone is a leader in some part of their life. Of course, if you're the CEO of a company, you have a lot of control over the circumstances. You have a lot of control over the direction of your company. As a parent, you're the CEO of your household. So everyone, as a volunteer or as a paid employee or as a family member, has some kind of leadership responsibility and can impact circumstances. And then habits is one that a lot of research has been done on, and I'll share a little bit on habits. So some of us, and also some of us are just born with happier genes. So some people don't have to work as hard, but I'm focusing on those that do. Okay, so now as far as circumstances, one thing that I wanted to talk about, and this relates back to why our natural state is not happy, is one where we're like always on guard. Well, first I'd like you to think about one big accomplishment that you recently had, maybe in the last couple of years, something that you worked really hard toward, a goal that you just said, oh, I'm really, this is so important to me, and then you finally accomplished it. If you can just think of one thing. And then what I'd like you to think about is how long you are satisfied by accomplishing that goal. Does everyone have something in their mind? Because I'm not going to ask you if anyone wants to share. Does anyone want to share? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I can be loud.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. I founded a law firm 20 years ago with some partners, and so about 5 years ago, I left that law firm and went to work for myself. And that was the big achievement that you asked about. And I would say that today, every day since I did that, I still am enjoying the benefits of it. So, yeah, that's my example.
Great, thank you. It's interesting. Every day I wake up and so thankful for so many things. My therapist said that she thinks because of what the deep, horrible, severe depressive episode I went through, that I will always feel this. So certain things, and I'll explain a little bit in a minute how to keep that, what you experience, what I experience. But usually what happens, and there's a really famous study done, it's called the tenure study, where a lot of times if you're in higher ed, so much effort is spent on earning tenure. And so researchers followed a group of professors before they had tenure, once they got tenure, and then certain time periods after. And they found out that the people, once they earned tenure, there was an increased level of happiness, but then what happened was it went back to their set point after a certain amount of time. So what happens is we humans have homeostasis, where for our own protection, if a tiger's coming to kill us, we go back to being like not happy again, so that we'll be ready for the next pounce of something ready to attack us. And so we're on what is called a hedonic treadmill. Once we achieve one promotion, once we achieve this, once we buy this thing, once we buy that thing, we're looking for the next. So that is a typical human behavior. Does anyone know how we get around that and get off that treadmill? Okay, well, it's actually quite simple. The secret to satisfaction is to want what you have, not have what you want. And if you look here, the more that you want than your satisfaction, it's tough to keep it up, right? If you just look at the numerator and the denominator there. So pretty simple, yet very hard. And that's something that I've learned the hard way. All right, next what I'm going to do is walk through the six, I should say six, because there's many, because we'll continue if you choose to, the studies. But there's 6 things I'm going to share with you. I'm going to run through them, and then we're going to break out amongst your table, and you can choose one of them and say what you're going to do with that one. You can choose more than one, but I'm just asking one, and then say what you're going to do about it. So the first one is comparison. In a yoga class many years ago, the yoga teacher said this quote, "Comparison is a thief of joy," in our class, and it really, really hit me. How many of you find yourself comparing to someone and then making yourself not feel worthy? So I challenge you to reframe your thoughts. Instead of being jealous or saying you're not good enough, or maybe talking down them to make you feel better, so who you surround yourself is who you become. So I'm in a piano performance group, and I am definitely the least advanced. That's my nice way of saying that some other things I could say that are not as polite. But instead what I think, instead of being intimidated by these people who are conservatory trained way better than I am, instead I aspire to learn from them. And I think if I keep on hanging out with them, they're going to rub off on me. Perfectionism. Who here would say that they have perfectionistic tendencies? Okay, if we're being honest, probably most all of us do at times. So that's natural. It's back to that we're kind of wired to not take action. So when you want to be a perfectionist, it's an excuse because you're fearful of making a mistake that you keep on not doing the action. So this is something I've written a lot about, and I'd be happy to send you links to some of this work I've done here. Just quickly here, there's kintsugi, if you know the Japanese art, where instead of throwing away pottery that has cracks in it, they fill it with gold. And it becomes a very beautiful gift that I've actually gifted friends. And a famous song by Leonard Cohen is "There's a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in." And of course you can see the beautiful picture here. What is the most important relationship in our lives? You guys are good audience. Yes, it's a relationship with yourself. This book has meant a lot to me. I was told by my piano teacher to read it. And I had the opportunity to mentor someone in Ellen Langer's mindfulness lab last year. He's a student athlete. And he talked a lot about his teammate, Graham Blanks. And he said that he borrowed this book, The Inner Game of Tennis, the dog-eared copy from Graham. My mentee, Reed, who does a steeplechase event, he's ranked regionally in the NCAA, he had a PR after reading this book. And then we interviewed Graham, and he talked about how reading that book, which was on Bill Gates' top book list, I don't know if any of you are on his mailing list, and he talks every year about the top books that he's read. He said that has really changed his world. Graham talked about cognitive diffusion, which is something that is part of CBT. And when you think, so every time he gets off the starting blocks, he thinks in his mind, I'm not having a good day. Okay, this is not gonna be a race. He has inner self 1 talking to inner self 2. And then what he uses is cognitive diffusion to have these negative thoughts go away like clouds floating away. So after he read the book, he set the NCAA record. He was number 1 in the indoor 5K. And then when we interviewed him, he was injured. And he said, I'm treating my psych appointments, my sports psychology appointments, just as importantly as my PT. He was quite injured. And then I ended up mentioning him in one of my columns, and Reed texted me later, and he said, Grace, I saw what you said about Graham. Did you know that he just placed 10th in the world? I didn't realize he got uninjured, and then he was in the Paris Olympics, and he placed 9th in the world. So he's using cognitive diffusion from that book to help him fight his inner self 1, because every race he goes out, and he has that going on. So it's psychology. A lot of my work for my piano playing, I have a performance psychologist from Juilliard I work with. A lot of his research is based on sports psychology, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of more research and funding that goes there, and that informs like piano performance psychology, which then it underlies a lot of the work I do. Another thing that I've used with my coaching clients is taking on the role of the neutral observer. So inevitably what happens in a lot of my coaching sessions is a C-level person will say, tell me play by play what happened in their executive team meeting, and it's a lot of people things. And so I've given the prompt of, what about stepping outside the ring and look in and use third person? And then separate, instead of saying, oh, I was so upset, say, Grace had found herself becoming agitated. So distance yourself from the situation. It helps you pause, reflect, and this is part of the cognitive fusion. Okay, next on habits. Habit stacking, 2-minute rule, and temptation bundling. So habit stacking, one example here is, I heard for a long time that drinking lemon water first thing in the morning is good for you, but I never seemed to get that together. So I decided to stack an existing habit, which was warming up my steel-cut oatmeal with my water pitcher right next to it and having it ready to go. And then the 2-minute rule is the beginning of the week, I slice up a lemon and put it in a container right next to my water pitcher. So then I'm habit stacking with my oatmeal using 2-minute rule by having the lemons available. And then temptation bundling, I always put weight training last, strength training, but I love to swim. So a few years ago, I joined a gym where the pool is right next to the weight room. So once I have that refreshing swim, then the weights are right next door. So it's something that you like to do, paired with something that is important to do, but doesn't give you immediate benefit, but is important long-term. So those are just some examples of habits. Also, finally, one thing I suggest to people is do something scary every day. Taking yourself outside of your comfort zone is back to the opposite of the inaction that your amygdala kind of has you like frozen. So last winter, I always never done a flip turn, and I forced myself to do one because I thought to myself, I have to do what I preach. So I forced myself, even though I did not want to, I forced myself to do a flip turn when I was being taught that in a group swim lesson. Alrighty, so next what I'd like you to do as tables is spend the next few minutes discussing these questions. And basically these questions are just the 6 things I just told you, and I know it's a lot. So you can just choose one, and with the people around you, or maybe the person next to you, whatever makes sense at your table, is say, this really stood out to me, I'm gonna try this. And then, if you would like to, maybe you can offer, hey, what's your phone number? I will text you in 2 weeks from now and check to see if you want to do that. I mean, obviously you don't have to, but if you could just spend a few minutes here, maybe the next 5 minutes, next few minutes or so, I'll kind of watch you to see if you guys, how good your progress is doing this. That'd be great. All right. As I walked around the room, I heard a lot of good conversation going on. Does anyone want to share? Would anyone like to share what they or their table is committing to doing in the coming days? What about here?
So,
Stand up.
all right. So I signed with a book publisher, and they've been putting pressure on me with this book for 3 years now. And I'm a perfectionist, and I want it to be perfect. So my table here suggested that it's not going to be perfect, so just embrace the shit. And I was like, wow. I think I'm going to put that in the book. So I'm going to embrace my shit this week.
Yes.
Make it flawsome.
Yes, and Stan, I'm going to be calling you, so you can write it for me.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to share? There's nothing like public commitment. Yeah, this might be scary, but do it.
Yeah, first, just speaking in front of everybody is scary for me, so I constantly wonder. But I think but this is something. This is an ongoing thing for me. But like turning around my negative critic is something I've been working on. I'm gonna need to continue on that. Like you said, I think it's just an ongoing thing throughout your life. Like the runner, had that every race. So.
That's what it takes to get to the Olympics, is fighting that inner critic.
So that's something I want to just, integrate into my life.
Great. Thank you. Others? And as you guys talk about your things here, if you're interested, I am piloting a plunge club to do this ongoing work. It's full. It starts next Tuesday. But if you want to be on the wait list, because I can't predict how many will actually show up, but I might have a couple slots. But then if you want, once we take all the learnings from the pilot and incorporate into the rollout, definitely you will be included in that here. And then also, if you want to, I value your feedback. If you want to, also the slides, if you can just put that at the end along with your email, I will be happy to do that. Who else wants to share what they are going to commit to doing in the coming days?
Reset our laundry.
Your laundry? Oh.
Yes.
Okay, and what specifically are you going to do?
We were going to habit stack with the,
Do something scary every day?
Okay. We were going to habit stack, doing our laundry was something we enjoy, and it was kind of silly, but we're probably all going to do it here. Drink wine while we do our laundry to make it more enjoyable.
That's the kind of table we're on. Wine and laundry.
Other things, do you guys have something that you'd like to share?
Well, maybe this doesn't come across as too obvious, but as a parent, it's always amazing how your children make you better because it's a reflection of you when they act and behave. So I'm always recommitting how I interact with them and how I respond to things because it makes them better people to make myself a better person. So.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to share what they will do? It will increase your commitment to doing it if you announce it right here. So something that you've been putting off, if you announce it right now, I predict it will happen. Okay, back here.